Hello, it's Aimee here, and in this video I will be making Mother's Day cards. This will be my third year making Mother's Day cards for my family, and I wanted to show this year's process to all of you and maybe give some inspiration for your own. I will be using these colored postcards and some flowers to decorate with. I stamped these flowers on a separate piece of watercolor paper and cut them out individually so that way it would be easier to arrange them on the postcard rather than stamping them directly onto it. Instead of stamps, you could use stickers or even draw your own flowers. I will also be using Bristol paper since it has a nice smooth surface for lettering, and embossing powder and an embossing stamp pad for decorating the corners of the postcard. I planned out all of my layout ideas in my sketchbook so that I don't forget how I wanted to make them and arranged the flowers first. I will be splitting this video by how each card is made, so there will be footage kind of out of order in how it was recorded, but it will make sense for each card. That way, you can choose to follow the card layout that you prefer. The first card I will be making is the washi tape card. I arranged the flowers on the bottom in a line and glued them down. After that, I sketched out Mom in block lettering on Bristol paper. I used a ruler to make a guide in order to keep the letters the same size. I realized that this is the first time that I actually sketched my process out on camera, and it's kind of weird. Let me know if you like that or prefer to just skip that part. I flipped the Bristol paper to the other side and added pretty cherry blossom washi tape on the back of it. You can use any other washi tape design for this step, but I thought that this would fit the best for mine. With that done, I flipped it back over and start cutting along the sketched block lettering. This works perfectly for these letters because when you flip it, it'll still be the same letter. With other letters, you'll have to sketch it out lightly and put the washi tape on top and cut it out that way. If you don't sketch it out lightly, the sketch will be seen through the tape, which is what happened to me the first time, and you can kind of see it on the first letter. Learn from my mistakes. With the O, I used an X-Acto knife to cut out the middle hole, but you can still use your scissors to cut it out as well by slightly bending the O and making a slit with the scissors. Then insert the scissors into the slit and cut around the middle area. All that is left is to paste the letters onto the card. Also, the pencil line on the first letter was bugging me, so don't worry, I replaced the washi tape for that off camera. And that is the first one completed. I think this is one of the easier ones and quicker ones of the four, but it is still really cute. Up next is the flower bouquet card. I kept the layout as it was and started pasting the flowers that will be behind the middle one first, so that way I didn't misalign the flowers. Moving on to the lettering portion, I was pulling my hair out because I messed up so many times. I just couldn't get it right at all, and I think by the end of it, I started getting camera shy, which is why I resorted to sketching the lettering first before using the nib, and I still messed up. I sketched the lettering again, and this was the final outcome. I was still not happy with it, but I was kind of fed up at that point and threw in the towel. This just goes to show that I need more practice. After the ink dried, I cut off the excess paper and placed them underneath the bouquet. The idea was to have the calligraphy be sort of the ribbon that holds the bouquet together. The card looked a little too bland for me, so I wanted to add some embellishments on the card. I used a decorative stamp with embossing ink and stamped the corners of the card and dumped embossing powder on the ink. After shaking off the excess powder, it leaves a really pretty design from the stamp. The white card underneath is used to catch the excess powder, so I can easily put it back into the container and save it. Repeating those steps 3 more times, it's time for the satisfying part. Using the heating gun, it turns the powder into liquid gold, and it is so satisfying to watch it melt. At least for me it is. I would never expect that the powder would make it so shiny, and I think this added a lovely touch to the card. Now onto the third card. I guess I'll call it the scrapbooking card. I took some pretty scrapbooking paper and tore off the areas I wanted to keep. I tried to aim for keeping the corners intact so that I didn't have to cut off the excess later. I arranged the flowers on top of the paper to see if I needed to tear off more of the scrapbooking paper. And when it looked good, I pasted the paper and flowers onto the card. Using the same method as the bouquet card, I used another stamp corner to emboss with, and since the flowers were in the corner, I only embossed the empty corners. I also showed how to save the excess powder by using the card to funnel it back into the container. I wanted to get in another satisfying shot of the powder melting away, but I forgot to hit record. So here I am, melting away high and showing you the finished embossed corners. For the calligraphy portion, I still wasn't feeling too confident without sketching the calligraphy first, so I wrote it in pencil and traced along with the nib afterwards. This saved me from a lot of the headache that I had with the bouquet calligraphy. After the ink dried, I cut the paper to the length that I needed and pasted it onto the card. I tried my best to center the middle writing, but I had to use tweezers so that I could carefully place it where I wanted it to go. I started the last card off by grabbing some pretty paper, and since it was so big, I used a paper cutter to get the size I needed. I cut it a little bigger than the card to avoid cutting it too small, since it's easier to get rid of the excess afterwards. Now, don't do what I did here. I decided to paste the scrap paper on the card first, but what I should have done was paste the flowers on the scrap paper and then pasted it on the card. When I laid the flowers on top of the paper, you can see that it was placed in the middle of it because the other half was going to get cut off. Since I already pasted the scrap paper on, I had to bring out the X-Acto knife, when you could just cut around it with scissors instead and then paste the whole thing onto the card. I wanted to try another writing utensil, so I decided to use my fluid writer pen, which is what I used for one of my cards last year. I don't think I've touched it since then, and because of that, I had trouble with overflowing in some areas. To fix the areas that had excess ink, I grabbed a Q-tip to gently soak it away. After that ink dried, I cut off what I needed and arranged the writing on the right side of the flowers. I think this card ended up being one of my favorites out of all of the cards, but what do you think? I don't know if you can see it, but I tried my best to show that the ink had a bit of shimmer to it. Here are all of the cards laid out and finished. This was a lot of fun to make, and even if you don't have the supplies that I used to make these, I hope the layouts could give you some inspiration for your own Mother's Day cards. Please tag me on Instagram if you do end up making one of these. I love seeing other artists' work. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you'd like to see more of these types of videos. Bye for now!